Takes a little every day to go a long way. God's love never stray from the day to day. So I pray, keep the faith and praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, save me, Lord. It takes a little every day to go a long way. God's love never stray from the day to day. So I pray, keep the faith and praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, save me, Lord. It's the things you believe in that keep you striving. Yo, I'm aiming for the top, so I keep on climbing, surviving, rising like the sun in the east. If the Lord be the light, let him shine.
Good morning, and welcome to the Quad Squad discussion, where current events meet the Bible. I'm your host this week, Ivan Alston, and as always, I'm joined by Dan, Sean, and Stacy. And I'll bring on our guests momentarily. How y'all doing this week?
Morning.
Awesome.
It's good. Last weekend stash. We missed you. Hope things are all right with your husband on the mend, and Martin Luther King Jr. weekend passed. Oh, so this is just a 4-day work week. Is Sean? Do you subject your people, you and Dan, at the Smith and Smith Law and Associates? Do you all subject your employees to working on King Monday?
Of course not. We're off King Day. We're off Juneteenth.
Up.
Does Kwanzaa have a date? We might take that off.
Does Kwanzaa have a date?
Oh my God.
It's Kwanzaa is the week. Stash, how you doing?
Oh, well, I'm doing good. We're doing good. Thank you so much. We did not have an emergency, but I do appreciate the thought.
I was so concerned.
So I got to just shout out hubby. He is the brave king in the household, and he, took his health in his hands, got some great news, got some things taken care of, and I'm just here supporting him. He's doing wonderful. So shout out to hubby.
That's good. And
what does your shirt say? Black girl who?
It says Black Girl Excellence. So, and actually, if you wonder where I got this from, if you all know Cubella, Cubella has a little novelty, entrepreneurship business. Okay. And so she has some shirts of various colors, and they're just so cute. So I got the green one. We talk about money today, honey. So I'm in that dollar green.
And in speaking about health, she went from a very bad car accident to hospital infection and COVID over almost 2 years ago to being in good health, going back. Shout out to our girl Q from all of Seventh-day Adventist Church. Let's bring our guest on all right? I see the wife, the queen on there. We're going to bring her classmate on as a guest. Robert J. Patterson Jr., the chief, was born in the city of brotherly love, which is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but raised in the New York City of the South, Atlanta, Georgia. He's a graduate of Oakwood College, now University in Huntsville, Alabama, and Alvernia University in Reading, Pennsylvania, with a Master's of Business Administration. He has served as an assistant chief financial officer and a chief financial officer in both Allegheny East and Southeastern regional conferences, respectively. and currently works as a business manager at a Christian school here in Orlando. He is married to the former Carmen Henry of St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, and together they have two adult children, RP3, who I call Robert the Third, who I call RP3, and Raina, his daughter, a graduate student at Emory University. The Chief enjoys music, sports, traveling, being with family and friends. He's my golf buddy. His life motto is, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then what?
My living has not been in vain.
Come on, people. Come
Yeah,
on.
my living's not in vain. Yeah, my living's not in vain.
You know this is I am an interactive host, MC. Let's try this again.
Yeah,
If I can help somebody
My
as I
living,
pass along, then my
I can
living.
cheer somebody with a word or song. If I can
Excuse me,
tell someone they're traveling wrong.
Counselor,
Okay,
counselor, thank you.
he's hyped up. He's still hyped.
I missed you guys.
Reclaiming my time. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not
Be in
Be in
vain.
vain.
Please give a warm Quad Squad welcome to one of our returning guests for this awesome topic, Rob the Chief Patterson. Come on in, Chief. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you once again. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Chief.
Brad, for the
Yes.
great introduction and giving me a middle initial. You, my
Yes,
man.
it is. Hey, let me tell you something. This is the Quad Squad where we will add and subtract.
Just
And
not from the
what's on
Bible. We'll add them to track, but just not from the Bible.
All right.
Well, okay. All right.
That's
Then,
what we
yes.
got our.
And please
Yeah.
don't stop golfing with my
Yeah.
husband after this because of
Yes.
these boys. I'm just saying.
Let's get into it. Let's see. Stash, please welcome and encourage our online audience to participate.
Sure. So first of all, I just want to thank you all for the prayers, the support. There is such a Quad Squad family out there. We just appreciate you. So I'm saying good morning, happy Sabbath, hello. How is everybody? Whether you're watching from Europe or you're watching from Canada or the Caribbean, North America, who knows, Antarctica, wherever you are, we just want to welcome you in the virtual space. Come on in. You all know what to do already. Put your chats, your questions, your answers right there in that chat, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, wherever we are. And of course, share and like and subscribe, right? And just wanted to share that we do have some goodies. Dan showing off his t-shirt, Sean showing off his t-shirt. We've got cups. I don't know what else we've got, Dan, bookmarks, and we keep getting more and more. So there you go. I have more and more stuff coming our way. But what's wonderful is that they are free gifts for you all. If you go onto our Gmail at quadsquad249@gmail.com. All right, let's get going.
And just think, good morning and welcome all to the Quad Squad, our viewers around the world, as Miss Stacy has done. Let's see. We're gonna have Sean and the Chief replying to your messages, and Dan's gonna put them up there as they answer questions, because we're gonna get into it. Let's get it going. Our memory text today. Bring your full tithe to the temple treasury, so there will be ample provisions in my temple. Test me in this and see if I don't open up heaven itself to you and pour out blessings beyond your wildest dreams. That's Malachi 3:10 from the Message Bible. In Genesis 14, Abram had returned from a successful hostage rescue mission in which he had saved his nephew Lot. Lot's family and the other people taken from the city of where? All right, people. Listen, let me get you all ready. I'm going to do what I used to do to my class, and my mom would do to class, to make sure that you all are participating and paying attention. In Genesis 14, Abram had returned from a successful hostage rescue mission in which he had saved his nephew,
Lot's
family, and the other people taken. Lot's family, and the other people taken from the city of
Sodom.
The king of Sodom was so grateful for the rescue, he offered Abram the spoils of the.
Sorry.
We got you, Ivan. Come on, we got you. We got you.
Okay,
Don't get
we're ready. We're ready.
The king of Sodom was so grateful for the rescue that he offered Abram all the spoils of the battle. Abram not only refused to offer, but gave a tithe of all he possessed to Melchizedek. To whom?
Melchizedek or
Salem.
Melchizedek, the priest,
Thank you.
10%.
Okay, I
Tithe.
just need a one-word answer. Thank you, counselor. Immediately after Abram's tithing experience, the Lord said, "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward," according to Genesis 15:1. In effect, the Lord was telling Abram, "Don't worry. I'll be your protector, your provider. I got you." Then, much later, Moses told Israel, who told Israel?
Moses.
As they were about to enter the promised land, which is where?
Canaan.
Thank you. You shall truly tithe all. Chief, I'm not hearing you. Turn his mic up, Dan. Y'all shall truly tithe all the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year, that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. Deuteronomy 14:22. Here it is. One author wrote, men were required to offer to God gifts for religious purposes before the definite system was given to Moses, even as far back as the days of Adam. As far back as the days of whom?
Adam.
Adam, the Garden of Eden.
One word answer will suffice. Thank you. Today, we will discuss the tithing contract and its blessings. Please hold your applause. Seriously, hold your applause. Here it is. Here it is. Question number 1 to the group. Understanding the tithe. We understand that all we have belongs to God in the first place. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All that we have, the tithing legislation given to Israel at Mount Sinai points out that the tithe is holy and belongs to God, according to Leviticus 27, 30, and 32. And the tithe is the minimum testimony of our Christian commitment. Does all that we have really belong to God? And what is tithe or tithing?
Yes, all we have really does belong to God. I'll answer that.
Oh.
In the words of the great Bishop Chaplain Barry Black, Dan, you're all over this, Elder Dan. Come on, Dan. You got this one, Dan. Oh, yeah, it's got your name all on it. Dan,
Pastor Dan.
does it all belong to God? And what does tithe or tithing mean, Dan?
Tithe or tithing is an action word. Meaning tithe is the present tense and tithing is the past present tense of doing what you're supposed to do. So tithing is an action word, meaning that we all need to be involved in this tithing process. It's a relationship. It's a reflection of who we are with God, where we are with God, our faith walk. It reflects a totality of the continuum of.
Wait a minute, Dan. Wait a minute, Dan. Chief, what is tithe or tithing?
That happened in front of our guest. Okay.
No, I'm all right. Tithe is simply a tenth of whatever your increase is. 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. All right. I see Reggie, my man from Chicago, and his lovely wife Vernice said contract sounds legalistic. Ooh, we're gonna hit that later on, Reg. Get ready. Get ready. Let me tell you something. Today, you need to have your Bible and a seatbelt, as one comedian said. Here it is. Sean, do you have anything you want to add to that definition? Does everything stashed belong to God? Really?
Everything. I mean, when you say everything, now, like I said, I'm wearing a little bit of money green and all of this today, but back in the day when you said everything, you meant like your cattle, your fruit, your whatever your harvest was. But then they turned profit to little coins, and then the coins grew in the coffers, and then it became dollars, and then people started asking, wait, you mean all of this belongs to God? But truly, God is so great. You know, as the word says, it is God that gives us power to get wealth. So he
Okay.
gives us the life force, the energy to obtain whatever blessings we have. Yes, it all belongs.
Sounds good. Sean, the first mention of tithe in the Bible is in Genesis 14, which I use in my introduction, which tells the story of Melchizedek meeting with Abram. The last mention of tithe in the Bible recalls the same encounter, but the words tenth and tithe are used interchangeably, according to Genesis 14, 18 through 20, and Hebrews 7, 1 through 9. What was Abram's response to meeting Melchizedek, and what does this teach us about how far back in history this practice goes?
Well, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Abraham was on his way back from saving his nephew Lot, bringing not only Lot but many of the spoils of war. And on his return, this first time introduced gentleman called the priest Melchizedek is there, and Melchizedek comes out and blesses Abram, and Abram provides a tenth to Melchizedek. And what this means is, if Abraham's giving a tenth to Melchizedek, this whole tenth and tithe thing is initiated and began even before the Hebrews, even before the Jewish nation, even before the Israelites. So as you already mentioned, this thing began all the way back in Adam. So we see Abraham conducting a practice that had been begun way before, and he's giving a tenth, a tithe of his spoils.
Oh, Sean, I hear you keep saying Abraham, but at that point, his name was only Abram.
You're correct.
Is there a particular reason and a distinction that should be made here regarding his name?
And not to get too sidetracked, but his name was Abram at that time. And later on through the biblical story, God comes in and changes his name to Abraham. And some quad squat lesson down the line, or maybe when we did in the past, we discussed why that is.
Because of his measure of faith and the fact that he be father of many nations. Am I right, Chief?
Exactly. I think the point that you're trying to ignite in me is
what
we see in Abraham giving a tenth to Melchizedek is a sign of his faith.
All right. Thank you. Well, hey, Dan. What we all kind of wondering if Sean was going to land that plane somewhere on the faith runway. Come on. There we go. Here it is, Chief. Chief. Dan, I got two-part question for you. Here it is.
Yeah.
Why is it important to understanding that tithing, like the Sabbath, was not something that originated in the ancient Israelite legal or even religious system? And what message should we who live after the cross take from this truth?
I like that first part of the question.
You like the second part?
Oh yeah, I'll get to that. But the first part really is a great question of equating in paralleling tithing to the Sabbath.
Yes.
People do not understand that the Sabbath was made for man and tithing was made for us as well. Yes. Because God understands that there's a blessing in the Sabbath, in which was set before, when he laid down the foundation of the earth. And also tithing was made for man too, to bring us together, an acknowledgement of who the creator is, where our sustenance come from, and where we need to always put the focus on. So when we take the focus off of the sustainer and the provider, then we lose track. So God put those reminders in place because he loves us, not because it's a money thing, but it's a faith thing, it's a relationship thing. And the second part of your question about what message should we take about the cross. Well, Jesus made that sacrifice on the cross, and he's just asking us a little sacrifice, a tenth of a sacrifice. He paid the ultimate price that we can equate, but he only asked us for a tenth of a sacrifice to give back. So, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Okay. Chief, read Malachi 3:10, because those specific directions are not given in the text. It is nevertheless evident that God's people knew what he meant by the word storehouse. God does include in his directions that there may be food, meat in my house. So, Chief, go ahead and read Malachi 3:10, and then I have a question for you.
Malachi 3:10 says, bring all the tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And prove me now, says the Lord of hosts, and see if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour you out such a blessing that there will not be room enough to receive it.
Okay. All right, Chief. Since you read that one pretty good, what can we learn from this verse about where our tithes should go?
Our tithe should go to the storehouse. Now, many people will argue that the text says storehouse, it does not say conference.
Ooh,
What's a conference?
what?
But we need to understand there were no conferences in the biblical time.
Okay.
The storehouse is, it begins at the local church.
Okay.
So when they had to bring their tithe to the storehouse, it was brought to one central location so that it could be used for its intended purpose. So the
Uh-oh.
storehouse is a place where you bring, everybody brings their money, their tithe together, and then it is distributed to where it needs to go.
All right. You notice how he walked the line without going ahead of the horse, y'all? I like the Chief. And let me just tell those who are viewing, there's a reason why I have my old childhood schoolmate and my wife's classmate on here. The reason I have is because he, like myself, have been chief financial officers in nonprofit and church organizations. He at a higher level, an assistant CFO, and then a chief financial officer. So he understands biblically and where we historically have been and where we're going. So I want you all to get ready, viewers. I want you all to get ready, QS listeners. Here we go. So Stash, as members of God's family, we want to understand and practice his will regarding what to do with our faith. In the biblical Old Testament narrative, we learn that 3 times in each year, Passover, Pentecost, Feast of Tabernacles, according to Exodus 23:14, Exodus 23:14 through 17, God's people were to travel to Jerusalem to bring their tithes and offerings personally and to praise and to worship God. According to 2 Chronicles 31:11, Nehemiah 12:44, Nehemiah 13:8, what did the Levite priest in the Old Testaments do with the tithe that were brought 3 times that year?
All right. And so, just a little bit of a point of order, sir, is that the men of Israel were called to Jerusalem 3 times a year to meet with the Lord. And so the men led out the journey with the women and their children. And so we, women and children, followed the priest, the head of our households, on that trek as they went to go meet with the Lord. And they led out in returning a faithful tithe and offering. And so when they led out with that, it wasn't just stockpile somewhere. Again, this is not them bringing just dollars and coins. This is grain and sustenance and various things for the maintenance of the sanctuary. They didn't come up with it on their own. It was an invitation with a guided instruction from the Lord. And so when they got to the sanctuary, there was not disorganization and confusion and everybody trying to get their hand in the pot. Instead, the priests had the Levites, and if I could just clarify the Levites a bit, they were not just priests. Now, they were the tribe of Levi, But this tribe, as instructed by God, their priests were sent out into the other tribes to minister and into the other cities. So wherever you had a gathering of the Israelites, there were Levites present to remind them of the love of God and to keep their attention on the Sabbath and things of the Lord, sacrifices and so on. And so when they came to the sanctuary, there were priests, singers, gatekeepers, workers in this arena that were organized in a fashion. And so you had maybe the finance committee of the priests, the treasury, who would take stock of what was brought in and organize. And as you read those awesome scriptures that you shared, they would then organize and disperse to the Levites their homes, considering women and children and taking care of so this was their way of providing for the Levites, because the Levites were not given property like the other tribes of Israel in the promised land. They weren't given property. They were dispersed. And so to provide for them while they were ministering to God's people and carrying out rules of health laws and sickness laws, because if you lived in a city and you got, the plague or you got something, you had to report to the priest. A local Levite was there that would carry out ceremonial rituals and laws.
Right.
So
That's right.
they organized in that coming to this great big convention. They organized the sharing of the tithe, of the increase, so that every pastor, every Levite priest and their family, the workers of the temple, could eat and live and have sustenance.
Okay. All right. Good. There's a good point. Let's just make certain, people, as you're throwing your questions in there and making your comments, and Rob, the chief, and Counselor Sean, Attorney Smith, they'll be answering your questions and whatever. So make certain that they answer your question. Don't let these scholars off the hook.
I like what Terry, Dr. Terry said. He says, when you are part of certain organizations, fraternities, sororities, masonry, Netflix, DirecTV, etc., you don't question where their storehouse is.
Mercy.
You pay your dues and keep it moving.
Wow, he just jumped all in my notes. I can sign off now.
Thanks, Terry.
Good stuff. There you go.
Yes,
Hey, Netflix paid for it. Let's keep moving.
Keep it moving. That's right.
Not borrowed.
Sean, the Bible speaks specifically of tithing, but our churches encourage us to give a liberal offering. What's the difference between tithes and offerings, and do its uses differ?
When you look at the Bible concept, you see the topic of offerings. You have your sin offering. You have your thank offering. There's even talk about your first fruits offerings. That's in addition to the tithe. Your offerings is what you bring to the church to maybe take care of. Should I do a plug right here for our spiritual hub or
Go ahead, hit it.
Plugger.
So when there's people that need items, like for example, a church wants to be able to fix up the plumbing or fix up the bathroom, or maybe there's needy that we want to there's needy in the church that we want to provide for. That's where our offering comes from. So that's in addition to the tithe. The tithe is a tenth, but the offering has no limit. You can give as much or as little. It's all dependent upon your offerings. What was really important in my study was the first fruit offering. So when they would go, talking about what Stacy talked about, the harvest, when they would go and share the sheep, they would come to the temple and bring the first offerings of fruit of the sheep. And they would say to the priest as they bowed down, listen, our parents were Armenian strangers in Egypt, and he has brought us to this land. And then on top of that, the priest would then provide blessings upon them. So it was a ceremonial thing, but most importantly, it was to imprint into the minds of the givers the offerings, the thankful offerings that were given to God. Not like when we were young, we would ask our parents, "Can I have some offering?" And they would give us a couple coins. That's what we thought
Right.
the offering was. But
That's
it's a thank offering of what he has done for you, how he has blessed.
And just a note on the Netflix, to my potluck crew, Tricia and Teresa, Etienne Brown and Angela and all those on here, I'm going to need to retrieve our Netflix logins. Y'all going to get your own, so we can't be...
Somebody a couple weeks ago.
No, Rob, maybe you can let them use your Netflix subscription or the login or whatever. Sharing is caring, somebody said, but I think Sister Alston's going to reel that in. Let's go to our first topic, because I'm glad you talked about the differentiation between tithing and offering and its uses. Because one of the main things I want to make certain is I want to make sure that what my money, tithing, is required. It's earmarked in this denomination. Offering, loose, goes to paying bills and various sundries things. So I want to just make sure y'all are not messing up my tithe or my offering. With that in mind, let's juxtapose or transition to our first topic: messing up my money. Where is my money? To take 1/10 of your income and give it away, though technically it belongs to God anyway, truly takes an act of faith. Would you agree?
Yes, we would agree.
And only by exercising faith will your faith grow. Therefore, the mishandling of money is very disheartening. Sow seeds of discord and doubt and may have criminal consequences. The Financial Investigations Division confirmed that Jamaican law enforcement received a report on Wednesday regarding the alleged fraudulent activities at Stocks and Securities Limited, that's SSL, in Stacy's native Jamaica, which are said to have, did I call her out? Which are said to have affected the accounts of Olympian Usain Bolt, among other individuals. Attorneys representing Usain Bolt demanded that a missing $12 million, that's with an M, be returned to Bolt by next Sabbath, January 27th, according to a letter sent to a Jamaican financial institution. In the letter to SSL, the attorney for Bolt said his account on Halloween, October 31st, 2022, Chief, said he had $12,750,000 plus. The balance is now, Sean, a little over $12,000. But Bolt has not made a withdrawal or transfer. Dan?
I heard it was $2,000.
Okay. According to the...
I read.
Thank you, Dan. You can use that in your expository. The articles that I read said the balance now is $12,000, but Bolt has not made a withdrawal or transfer. Dan, since you're a little anxious, go ahead. Why don't you take the story, Dan?
I will, since the first one's coming to me anyway. So anyway, what I read from the article written from Jamaica's press, that now, as of now, maybe when you read Ivan, it was 12, but they said it is $2,000 now. And anyway, from 12 to 2, can you imagine if you've had 12 million and you're giving, trusting, supposedly well-known and reputable money exchange firm or money management, that they say, "Oh, it's gone. I'm sorry. I don't know."
Oops.
So it's like putting your faith in man, in manly systems, and we complain about godly systems and giving 1/10 to the church. Hey, I put my trust in God. I know it says on the money, "In God we trust." That's the way it goes. So it's a reflection of Hussein, No, because he put his faith in a reputable institution. That's why, I'm praying for him, because he took a lot to get that. But Maya said, you can't trust humans. That is so true. We got to put our trust in God. Period.
Okay. All right. Stash. This is a country of your origin. Do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, from Montego Bay. Anyway, but yeah, no, it is. There's a little bit of an outcry. What's been interesting about this is he's not the only investor that had lost
Right.
funds, and apparently, I don't know if it's true or not. Allegedly, stories are coming out that they were able to isolate who it was. They had started investigating them, but didn't realize it was related to the reasons why Usain Bolt was calling their company. And so when they realized the connection, apparently the story goes, they let that person go. And that person is apparently giving some kind of statement, affidavit. I have no clue, but it sounds like it started for over 10 years ago. I have no idea. But there's this little bit of an outcry going on social media saying, after all he's done for the nation, he's really brought light back to the Jamaican and really brought the tourism industry back. He gives back to, needy kids and this is what you do and so on. But, I'm going to tell you, I feel for him and I pray for him, and surely he's got other investments, but he had an accounting of what was going on with his investments. Back in the day, our stars would hire an accountant and just forget about it. And then they're in their age and they realize they don't have any money. They have back taxes. They have this and that. So these younger stars are calling their financial teams together to say, what do we have going on? How much is here? And so in that accounting, he's like, something's wrong. And I pray that it all gets worked out. And I think they're trying to do things the right way. But I thought about it and I was like, when we think about the Storehouse versus an investment firm. Now, of course, there are some reputable firms with, secure insurance for funds, etc. But I'm going to tell you something, especially this week that my husband and I just came off of health-wise. We have given to the Storehouse. We return our tithes and an offering. And sure, people may have questions. I wonder what really happens with it. But let me tell you something. When we look at the returns on our investment, the health, the miracles, the healing, the how God comes through when there should be no oil in the pan.
Come on now.
The bills are paid and you got this little bit of flour and it just keeps feeding your household day in and day out. I'm just like, I will continue giving to the house.
Yes.
God is so
I gotta cut you off before you keep reading some more of the Chief's notes. Go ahead, Chief.
Yes, you just took all of my thunder, because when I think about that, when I invest in the Storehouse, I never lose.
That's right. Come on, say it again, Chief.
The organization may mishandle, the organization may do things that are corrupt, but when I do what God has told me to do,
all right, now
I never lose. So yes, Mr. Bolt, he invested in this company and he lost his money, but when I return my tithe to God, I don't lose. So we have to differentiate between our giving to, we say we give to the church. No, I don't give to the church. I give through the church, but I'm giving to God.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Say that again, Patterson.
That's a word this morning. Yes, sir.
I give through the church, but I give to God.
Right. And guess what? So I've been places and of churches, and people said, they're doing what with the money? Oh, I ain't giving my money. I'm doing this and doing that. And I said, the Lord's going to separate the wheat from the tares. And when you mess with God's money, he hasn't forgotten. So I'm just thinking, and just think about it like this. Shout out to Binky. Her mom used to be Rob's assistant there in the conference here in Allegheny East, Michelle Brown. Here it is. Here it is. When you begin to put your faith in God and he trusts you, why do you think that you should worry or fret? I asked a pastor named Henry Wright. I said, Pastor Wright, what do you tell the people in New Orleans that have been through Hurricane Katrina that they should still trust you? He said, it reminds me, Ivan, of a sermon my wife Carol preached. He said, the question is after that, can God still trust you after you've been through something? That's what it is. Because guess what? Man will always let you down. Every single denomination, Chief, Dan, has had a scandalous story regarding money and the mishandling of it and the embezzlement of it. But God still works and saves. Why? Because as we said last week, it's a bilateral covenant that supersedes men.
Amen.
Sean,
Amen.
last comment before we go to the next one.
Well, hold on.
I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Ivan,
yes.
That was so beautiful. That was carried on from last week. It's a bilateral what?
Covenant. Two ways. God does his part, we do our part, and then after that, God's like, wait a minute. Now I'm going to bless you. So guess what? We're going to talk, Reggie and others, Joni and Dr. Sarita and all there. Thanks for joining us, Sister Pat, and our wives, our spouses. Shout out to Carmen. Shout out to Carmen, Henry Patterson, and our spouses. Let me tell you something. We're going to get real deep in this. We're going to talk about the legalistic thought and some people's idea that tithing is Old Testament only, nailed to the cross. We're about to hit it today. So press the recorder on you. Now talk long enough here, Sean. Sean, now a word from our counselor.
Thank you. I mean, we look at this story about Hussein giving millions of dollars to this organization who was supposed to be a steward of his funds.
There you go.
And then when we look at, well, he's missing so much money, the argument is these people stole or these people robbed from Hussein. And we get so upset, we get so adamant, these terrible people, right? But the reports out there show that only 10 to 25% of church-going people actually return an offering, right? So that means at minimum 75% of us who are going to a faith organization are like this company.
That's right.
Ouch.
So,
Body blow.
So listen, I mean, it's nice to talk a good game, give tithe, return tithe. But let's be honest, why is it that only 25% of us only return the offer? Let's be honest. When we look at the bill, when we look at the tithe, we go to, I'm going to pay the bill.
That's right.
And it's that issue of faith that you're talking about, right?
Come on.
Duke says I owe $340, right?
Who's Duke?
Energy.
Thanks. Stay with us.
Says I owe $340, but then my local church is saying that I owe $342 as well. If I give my $340 to the church, who's going to take care of Duke when my lights go off? And that's the real issue. We've got to talk about increasing our faith in Christ.
All right, let's hit it. The purpose of tithing. The first section was understanding tithe. Now let's go to the purpose of tithing, Chief. In harmony with this biblical central storehouse principle, this denomination, this one here, Seventh-day Adventist Church, has designated the local conferences, missions, and unions of churches as storehouses on behalf of the world church, and from which the ministry is paid. For the convenience of church members, the tithe is brought to the local church. No waiting 3 times a year, traveling to Jerusalem, Mecca, Oakwood, Washington, D.C., Colesville Road. Stay with me, all right? For the convenience of the church members, the tithe is brought to the local church, where As part of the worship experience, members bring their tithes and offerings, or some like my household, use online giving. So in other words, don't judge me when you'll see me in church not putting anything in the offering plate. I've used an internet to leverage my giving. Come on, somebody. The local treasurers
We zealous.
then forward the tithe to the conference storehouse. So here's my question, Chief. How did this practice originate? And is it in conflict with biblical principles?
It originated at the beginning when the denomination was put together. They we're a new denomination, so we got cues and stuff from other groups. So the tithe coming into the local church and then being forwarded on to the local conference and then distributed down the ladder to the union and the division. Notice I said down the ladder and
Come on,
not
Chief.
up the ladder, because the local church is where it happens. So if it doesn't come in there, it can't get to anywhere else. So what has happened, we bring it into the storehouse because there's a church it's in a pop canal, Patmos, the Well, that is a huge establishment. But then there's a small church in South Georgia that only has a handful of people. So our denomination has put into place the tithe sharing method.
Yes,
so
sir.
Where the strong help the weak, and by it coming into one central location, that small church in South Georgia is able to get resources that they would not have based on the members there to help them grow. Because come on, that's the bottom line. We're in this thing to grow God's kingdom.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
And that's what the funds should be used for. So it's to take care of the employees so that they can do God's work.
Yes.
So the tithe sharing is important for it to come into one central location, because if it all stayed at your place, it's not going to get to any other part of the world.
That's right.
It may not get to any other part of the world.
That's right. And Rob, that as a senior Medicare advisor, that's the system that we have in healthcare. How we all put in to help the greater good, the masses,
Obamacare,
and the like. All right, as it goes on. So I appreciate that history, Sean. This system of tithe management the Chief spoke about, outlined and ordained by God, has enabled this denomination to have worldwide and growing impact in the world. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely.
So imagine if everyone decided to give their tithe to whoever they wanted to give. I don't want to give to that kind of storehouse. They listed like that. I want to do my own thing at the expense. So imagine if everyone decided to give their tithe to whomever and wherever they wanted at the expense of their denomination. What would happen to our church? And why is that practice then such a bad idea and contrary to Scripture?
You sure you want to ask me that question?
I do, indeed.
This is the day.
Unequivocally. Give it straight with no chaser.
Well, I believe if we decided to do our own thing, let's talk about the principle and not follow the direction or demand of God, right? God would still take care of his church. Our church would be still taken care of. But what we do see, right, is what happened to the children of Israel because of the way that they behaved, right? There was a time that the local church wasn't being taken care of. It's like, why? Because you are not returning a faithful tithe and offering. And the principle of the matter, going back to this faith issue and whether it be legalistic, it's an indication of our lack of faith when we're not following the obligations, or I'm not going to say obligations, the commands of God. God is essentially saying, show me your faith. Show me that you trust me, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to bless you. I'm trying to open up the windows of heaven. I want you guys to look at the windows in your house right now. How many windows you have? And God is trying to say, I'm trying to open up all of those windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. but you are refusing to trust me. You're refusing to receive the blessing that I have in store for you because you are holding on to it. You are holding on to it and not taking care of the poor and the needy and the widow and the suffering, right?
Right.
Your house is looking good while the house of God is in shambles. So
And think about this before I go to you, Stash. God, unlike Usain Bolt and others, members of parliament down there and others, put their money in SSL, put their money in the stock. We own stock, we own bonds. And as it turns out, we are expecting a return on that investment. Rob, Stace, and I, we have our MBAs. We know ROI, return on our investment. We expect that everything we do in the business will have a profitable return.
mhm,
All
mhm,
right. So Usain expected money back, not losing all of his money. And guess what? God's telling you, if you just trust me, stiff-necked people, hard-headed people, if you trust me, there are blessings. We'll talk about the blessings later. But it said the windows of heaven will be open out that you don't have room enough to receive it. I'm like, Lord, I need me some of that.
mm.
Here it is, Stash. But so now, here's your question. The tribe of Levi, the ministerial force in the Old Testament, was not given large properties, as you said earlier, as were the rest of the tribes. Levi was given certain cities, including the cities of refuge.
So sorry. I know the chat is on fire, but guys, we are sharing some facts. So I want you to tune into some of this history that Ivan is given. I can see opinions flying and we don't ever want to stop it.
That's right.
But you need to hear some of the solid stuff that's being shared as a basis and foundation. I'm sorry, Ivan, can
It's
you?
all right. That's
Thank
right. It's
you.
all right. Thank you. You mentioned earlier the tribe of Levi, the ministerial force in the Old Testament, was not given large properties as were the rest of the tribes. Levi was given certain cities, including the cities of refuge, with enough land around them for personal gardens. They were supported by the tithes of the others, and they themselves also tithed their income. However, the ceremonial system of the Old Testament, which is no longer operational, nailed to the cross, right? Now, Stash, here it is. Who would be supported by the tithe in the Christian church? How does tithe enable the church to have a global impact far beyond our regional borders? Stash?
Yeah. So I like to give practical examples. I thought about subscribing to Hope TV. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Some of us have, some have not. If not, go check it out. They are faith based and they are donation based. And as a matter of fact, if you live in Central Florida or I think along a region of Florida, you'll hear of these faith-based radio stations as well. Like I think there's Z 88.3 and Joy, this and that, and But then there is this organization that's excellent called Hope TV. And at the time, I thought, man, I wish I could just subscribe and give all I could, but I didn't have it to give at the time. Anyway, I went on vacation to a quote unquote third world, right, nation, and turned on the TV, which was working by satellite. And lo and behold,
Yes.
Hope TV broadcast was free.
Wow.
And there were so many people tuned in to Hope TV, asking questions, requesting prayers, getting Bible answers. On top of it, just recently, we heard from a Hope TV report that in the Ukraine and Russian and Eurasia territory, Hope TV's free broadcast is like the main program that is watched over there. And so when we think sometimes we feel like, man, our church needs a paint job, our church needs new carpet, our church needs, I don't know, I'm just thinking, new stuff and what's going on and why can't we get this back and what's happening? Well, somewhere where people don't have the luxuries and the freedom of religion that we have in this country, there's a hospital being built out there for them. There's a school being built out there for them, maybe a church school. There's missionaries out there risking their lives who can't afford a place to live but has some accommodations that's teaching English and doing missionary medical or spiritual missionary work because of the tithe that's being brought into the larger storehouse. You know, I'm going to share this because I see the comments and I agree with some, and maybe some we can talk about. I'm big on accountability. I believe this is the Lord's money and funds, and we should be sure that those who are handling it with integrity. But, you know, I'm going to say this. You know, I came out of another denomination, and not to down anyone's denomination or call them out. It was, I don't know what it was, but I thought to myself, something's not calculating here. The leader of the church, when we bring our tithe and offering, they keep it. It's there. They believe they're the Levites of the storehouse. And so when they're driving out with their Lincoln, or when they're driving out with their Benzo, and people are standing at the bus stop, you've got people on welfare, you've got people who cannot feed their families, but then, you know, some time of the year comes around and we've got to give gifts, and the gift has to be big. We're going to buy the leader a house. We're going to buy them a plane. We're going to buy them a new helicopter, a car, and they already have the storehouse to themselves. I mean, their church members are suffering, and there's nothing coming back at all.
Mercy.
It was hard. So when I came and learned about the Sabbath and this particular organization called the Seventh-day Adventist organization, and I heard how they manage paying their pastors, that it was not by the size of the church, that they brought it to a central location and divvied out an equal pay. And yes, I know it's not perfect. I got to tell you. And then I heard that Bibles and hospitals and schools and missionary work was covered in our return. That left an indelible impression on me. And that was one of the reasons I accepted this message. I'm here to tell you straight.
Dan, it is said that tithing is important because it helps us establish a relationship of trust with God. One reason is that faithful tithing can surely develop that trust. Why is it of paramount importance to develop this level of trust, faith, relationship with God for the end of times depicted in Revelation 13 and 14?
Ooh, good question. That was a good question. That's one of them very black. Sick of Dan. Give him Dan. You know.
Dan, I called you Pastor Dan, not Captain Dan. Lieutenant Dan.
That took a lot of reflection and meditation because, you know, we study our Bibles. We go to Bible studies. We do all these things to prepare ourselves and build a better relationship with God for trying times, before, as they say, the time of trouble, whenever that may hit. So when I was thinking about that in the context of Revelation, on what was written, you know, the mark of the beast, and not being able to buy and sell unless you have this, it still boiled down to, you know, it's okay. I'll put it this way: when we play sports, or we're still in sports or working, you know, you have to work out and prepare. So if you haven't been working out or working those muscles, then when it's time for prime time, you're not going to function. You know, football, we're coming. I know, you know, football is winding up. You know, the teams are getting sliced here, left and center. They are preparing. You just can't go out there and win a game. So Revelation is letting you know what's going to happen in the end times. Have we been practicing our faith muscle?
Come on, Dan.
By paying tithe, not questioning. When you want to work out, you know, when you want to get in shape, you have to do. It doesn't say, well, you know, if you got a personal trainer, the personal trainer is telling you, hey, you need 10 push-ups. When the doctor tells you you need to do this for your health, we're not going to question the doctor. So if God, who knows the end from the beginning, if he's telling us you need to you need to obey the 10 commandments, you need to pay your tithe, to give back. He said this is something that's going for you. So, and if we're questioning him and with, oh, well, God, you gave me the muscle of my brain, and I'm thinking I don't like this system, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it my way. Don't think that you're going to get the same end all results.
Correct.
It's a faith walk.
So
I think, Sean, you scratching your head. You probably, if you got something to add,
Sean, wait. Hey, the Smith brothers look a little interesting this morning, don't they, Stash? They almost look like they're ready to Chief, I'm coming to you. But I also want you to address the term paying tithe and returning tithe as part of your answer when I ask you this question.
Okay.
Another reason for financial faithfulness is that as part of the tithing contract, God has promised tangible blessings. What does that say about how he'll bless us immeasurably based on the text you read in Malachi 3:10? And let's talk about the payment term paying tithe versus returning tithe. Chief, and then we'll go into topic 2.
Good. Paying tithe. So when you pay tithe, when you use the term I pay my tithe, you look at tithe as a bill.
Okay.
And some folk that look like us,
well,
we don't pay bills.
Hit it, Chief.
Ouch.
So when you look at it as I'm paying tithe, that means I can miss it sometime. But when you return it, because if the tithe belongs to God and it's not mine, I can't pay him. I'm giving him what's his already. So I don't pay my tithe. So if tithe is a bill for you, then we can miss bills sometimes. But like when Sean brought the analogy of Duke Energy versus paying my tithe, you're always gonna pay your light bill.
That's right.
Because you want to keep your lights on.
That's right.
But when I return my tithe, here comes the second part of your question.
Yes.
About the benefits. So when I put God first and return my tithe, he'll keep my lights on.
Okay. Come on, man.
And here's this too, Ive. And if they get cut off, maybe it's time I need to be in the dark to spend some time with him.
Ooh, Chief.
Verse 11 of Malachi 3, there's a promise in there. God says, when you return your tithe to me, bring it in the storehouse. He says, I will rebuke the devourer for your sake. That's a promise. That means to me is that my stuff, when I put God first and I trust him, my stuff will not break down. So my car that's 10, 12, 15 years old will continue to keep running. And when it breaks down, he'll give me the resources that I need to get it fixed. The devil cannot mess with your stuff when you put God first and when you trust him. So the benefit is he will rebuke the devourer. Those things that try to take you out will not have a chance when you put him first and trust him.
There you go. Shout out to your classmate, you and my wife's classmates. I see Tamara Davis, and I see PJ, Patrick Jones, and Charlotte, North Carolina, the Queen City.
What he says?
Yes, Duke will make payment arrangements. Yes, they will, because it is a bill. Tithe is not a bill. There are no arrangements with tithe. So You got to put that out first.
Patrick is testifying.
There you go.
Testifying on the Duke arrangements.
Dan, put up Vaughn Reed's comment for her, for Dr. Myerson. She's ordering us to do that. And I'm gonna.
It's an
You want to say
exclamation
something?
The big one.
I'm sorry.
Vaughn-
Did you want to say
Vaughn's
something,
been
Sean, before
going
I
in.
go? Did you
Yeah,
want to say
well,
something?
Vaughn's a
Did you-
PK, so
Sean,
This Vaughn Reed.
Sean, did you want to say something before I go into the topic too?
Yeah. I'm saying Vaughn's been going in. He's thrown a couple
Herbs.
haymakers
Oh.
up there. But to go to Vaughn's point, and we've talked about this earlier, to go to Vaughn's point,
Do we need to read it?
remember when Jesus was
Go ahead and read it, Sean.
Oh, okay, no questioning tithe. I am a firm believer and faithful tithe returner. I have just witnessed conferences hosting and paying for lavish retreats while local churches are struggling because their members are faithful tithe returners but don't have much left over for offering, which is a point that he wants to make. But let's go back to, because remember, we're talking about stewardship, right? We're not here to say what is or what the conference is not doing. We're saying, listen, if you tithe, here's the benefit of your tithing, right?
That's a whole nother show.
Right.
Yeah, and I wanted sorry to cut you off, counselor, because I didn't mean to. But there's the other component to this, and it's in next week's lesson.
Yes.
The blessing and the benefit of the offering, which we don't talk about. And I'm praying that next week's lesson dealing with the offering really shows the importance of it, because technically, and I'll jump in it because I won't be a guest next week, but I will tune in.
Don't be so certain.
maybe.
Don't be so
Offering
certain.
is where your blessing comes from.
Come on, Chief.
I see a part two here,
you don't
Ivan.
get anything. You're not impressing God with your tithe.
Ooh, say that again.
God is not impressed with, because it's already his. How can Ivan, if you let me borrow, if you give me your car and I bring it back to you, I haven't done anything for you. I am impressed.
No,
But when I detail that bad boy and
put some gas
in it, when I return it to you,
a bucket on the side.
that's where
Chief.
my blessing comes from. I digress. I won't.
See, Chief. Wait, Elder. Let me just put a side note in there. Elder Robert Patterson Jr., RJP 2, Elder, is preaching today at Mount Sinai SDA Church in Apopka. You can catch him online, or you can come in person there on Clark Corner Road. But here it is, Chief. I'm trying to get you out at 10:15 so you can be up there. You may go ahead. All right. Here it is.
He don't get up and preach till 12:30, 1 o'clock. So you're good.
See there you go. There you go. First of all, let's give a shout out to one of your old compadres and peers, Chief Financial Officer, my friend Philip Palmer there in Southwest Conference, and to my point, my man, Kenny Scoop Anderson. Put that back up there for a second, Dan. Tithing is often presented as an obligation. More emphasis should be placed on relationship to God and each other. That's probably, and guess what? So you already earned a position to be a guest next week when we bring somebody on. We're gonna have somebody else on as well. But I just wanted you all to know and keep it ready that part 2 of this is going to be muy caliente.
Fire. It's fire today.
Very hot. Here it is. Now we're about to really get into it. They try to warn me. Here it is, but you know me. Topic 2, to tithe or not to tithe. Is tithing really biblical? That is the question. Today, there are people and online articles that say that tithing is an outdated practice and is only an Old Testament instruction, while others, including ministers, popular ministers, say that tithing isn't biblical. Last summer, a very popular minister said he misled his congregation for years and is now saying that tithing isn't required anymore. In fact, he uses Romans 6:14. You can do a Google search if you want about this preacher and what he said. He said, for Romans 6:14 says, for sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under the grace. You are under grace, not under laws, he noted. One article I also read said that I've read that gave 5 reasons that Christian tithing is unscriptural. One reason was that tithing is a form of legalism. Legalism is a belief that you can earn your way to heaven by doing good works. It further says that the Bible teaches that rather we are saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ in Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. So, Sean, as I come to you, Sean Smith, you always hear people using, oh, this was nailed to the cross. That was nailed to the cross. The commandments, the eating of flesh, the tithing system. I'm going to church. There's no New Testament scripture or basis for this. Counselor, what say you regarding what that popular minister said about tithing being outdated and that the Bible scripture has no relevance when it comes to tithing?
Yeah, I'm not going to direct my comments to any old preachers, but
Okay.
I will say that the Bible does condone the principle of tithing. It was before Israel, it was after Israel. And again, a lot of the focus is we get from this because we see how people misuse the principles of God. Right?
Okay.
And so they're taking God's edicts and they're selfish with it. They take the tithe that people give and spend it on themselves. They take the tithe that people give and they use it incorrectly. And it's the same thing. It's funny. The church in Jesus's day was just as corrupt then. But you never, I mean, look how he lauded the poor young widow for giving the last of what she had at the temple, right? He didn't admonish her, saying, well, the offering, right? He didn't admonish her for her giving at all, but he lauded. He never said, listen, he talked about the Pharisees. He called them fathers of the devil. He called them vipers, all sorts of names he called the church-going people at that time. But you never hear him say, do not return a faithful tithe and offering. There's no scripture to that point because we understand that the blessing is on me. It's a personal blessing in terms of drawing me closer to Christ. He's saying this. It's about you realizing that everything you have came from me, right? Did everything we have stop coming from God in the New Testament? Did everything we have stop coming from God today? No. Everything we have is just a symbol for us saying, God, I recognize that everything I have came from you, right? That's what I'm doing in like you said, returning to you the 10%. Your Maserati. I'm just giving it back to you. It's not mine in the first place. I'm just giving it back to you.
Can I borrow it next week? Okay, never. Sorry. All right.
Stash, did you want to enter something, Dan? You want to enter something?
Listen, I'm just saying this. Everybody wants accountability for where, quote unquote, their money is going.
Sure.
Right? If I pay, if my husband and I pay our mortgage or our rent, there should be no reason that we get a notice that we did not make a payment, and now we have payments due with interest and possible eviction notice. We want accountability. I know we paid this. What is the issue? So when we look at when we are returning our tithe and it appears the union, the conference, the church, whatever is going on, it appears that there's misappropriation of the funds. I'm just going to say this. I definitely hear the outcry saying we want accountability of finances. Totally get it from the church, from the local church up. I'm just going to say some of y'all can't read financial statements, but that's okay. I'm just saying you want accountability, and I hear it. But I'm saying while you're busy trying to hold leaders accountable, how about yourself? Are you accountable? You know, when the Lord, when we want to say, you know, I need this kind of integrity from a leader, understand that you have to pause and think about yourself, because the Lord says that the same judgment that you judge with will be used to judge you. If you know about accountability and
Yes.
integrity, then you better live to that level that you're holding somebody else accountable. And I just want to say that there is, unless you have found a way to turn over the tables at GC and make a difference.
What's GC?
The General Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Church worldwide, to figure this out, even though they have auditors that go to school for that kind of thing. I'm saying, don't get distracted. Do you know, I mean, the enemy will use even that to distract you from what the Lord has called you to do in your life. So when we see things that don't look right, are you okay with putting it to prayer as well as trying to put it on blast and see how God turns that thing around? But in the meantime, as for me and my house, as for your household, are you returning? Because some of us are, and we don't have nothing, and God has put us in cars we don't belong in, has kept our bills paid, has kept our health when we don't even have health insurance quietly. I'm just saying that God has been faithful. When he said he will open the windows and pour out a blessing, it's not just in dollar bills. He kept your shoes for 10 years.
Stash. Don't go too far. Wait, you know the last question.
Let it go.
Hold on. Stash, that is damn. ISO me, damn. Put me on ISO.
I got you.
Stash. You know that is unfair. The last question is we're supposed to give our own tithing testimony, and you went ahead. Dan, put her on mute for the next 2 minutes. Here it is.
Hold my mute.
Hold on. Chief, Sean, Dan, Stash. I don't trust none of y'all. I love y'all. I don't trust none of y'all. I don't trust nobody. In fact, when I play Uno with my wife Audra, I still cut the deck.
I don't trust him.
Here we go. I'm just saying. Here it is, Stash. Here it is. I'm coming to you. Off mute. All right. Here it is. Last segment. Tithing in the 21st century. Tithing on the gross or the net income. An honest or faithful tithe. Let me tell you, this is hot stuff right here. Here it is. Some of the most popular countries that offer financial benefit of having no income tax are Bermuda, Sean Smith, Monaco, the United Arab Emirates, and the Bahamas. In fact, the Bahamas is definitely considered a tax haven first and foremost because there is no personal income tax. There's also no capital gains tax, Chief.
God bless the Bahamas.
Inheritance or gift tax? No, Sean or Dan. Nor are there any wealth taxes or taxes on share, dividends, and interest. The Bahamas. In fact, in the Caribbean, stay with me, 5 countries offer a citizenship by investment program. Of those 5, St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda don't levy a personal income tax. The remaining 3, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia, taxation on foreign income is inexistent or limited. Right now, there are 9 states in the United States that don't collect state income taxes. Lord, thank you for having my company move me from California to Florida. Here they are, the 9 states: Florida, Alaska, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. No state income tax. So when you see your athletes get ready to decide where they're going to go when they get traded or free agent, there it is. Stash, here it is. Although Sean is our native tax-free Bermudian, in this country, U.S., where the government takes a portion of your federal and in certain areas, state income taxes, court or agency tax penalties, payments, child support, fines, etc., upfront from your paycheck, along with companies deducting health insurance, chief, at a pre-tax basis. Stash, should we return tithe on our entire gross income or just the amount we receive as an increase net? Number one. Should we also pay a tithe on our IRS tax refund if you pay on the net or the gross? And does the promise of the Lord, according to Psalm 32:8, help us with any of these decisions? Stash, the floor is
Jab,
yours first.
jab. Well, listen, can you do me a favor and
Yes.
spotlight Lenore? I don't know if you all, wait a minute. Hold on. Was it Lenore? Someone was talking about
investment
gross
advice.
blessings. Oh, Deandra Collins. Can you
Or
put down?
DC, DeAndrea.
Says Deandrea. She says gross. She says gross. She says you want gross blessings or do you want net blessings? She says I want and receive gross blessings. So some of us, listen, people, I love you. Y'all my people, and I love you. But we know some of us can't even read. We don't even know what we getting when we read that paycheck. I'm just, can I just keep it real? So, we get that paycheck and we just, give our time. We have not looked to see what our income, we haven't even calculated what we are paid per hour because all we see is deductions. I was Social Security tax coming out. Oh, so-and-so's coming out.
Medicare.
Coming out.
FICA.
And we haven't even sat down to say, wait, if I make this per month, how much should I really be bringing in? And how much are they taking out before they really give it to me? And so, when we think of the Lord, when we think of the increase of the Lord and the blessing that He gives us, and I'm definitely not here to
Judge.
educate or judge, but I am giving on my gross because what I make is what I make before the taxes and all the other, before Uncle Sam gets his, right? Even though it don't hit me, the fact is that's really how much, that's my increase. And out of my increase, Uncle Sam's making sure he gets his. So I'm going to give the Lord the 10% off of my gross. Now, when tax time comes around, I tend to also, and it's not, this is my business, I tend to also return tithe and offering off of that because the Lord has been good and has kept me. And that's my view. But there's some who are saying, well, things get tough. And so I may tithe on the net. And then when tax time come around, when I tithe on that, I'm taking care of the gross. So, so I really would pass the ball to maybe Elder Patterson on the education point on this. But I'm just going to say, folks, all I know is I thank God for every hair on my head, and my health and my strength have not. The year that I started withholding tithe was the year I saw more financial debt and ruin than I had ever seen in my life. And the year I turned around and began returning tithe to the Lord and thanking Him for His blessings with an offering, God has never failed me. I've been young and now I'm old. Y'all,
come on, Chief.
They've been preaching. Here's the thing. Most of us, we either own a house or we drive a car, and if we finance those items, all of us are not like Sean and Dan, just
Right.
write the check for it. So some of us need some financing. But when you go to that finance manager, you don't base your income what you have on your net.
Ooh.
You give them your gross so that you can be approved for the highest amount. So why not then, if we are trusting God and we're returning to Him, why would we give Him anything less? My man, Elder Palmer put in the note, what is an increase and what
Define
is
increase?
Define increase. First fruits. That's when we talk about the first fruit principle, that's returning to God first, putting Him, when we put Him first in what we do, and the lesson talked about that with the widow at Zarephath, and I think Sean is going to hit, so I won't steal his thunder on that. But I have a whole discourse on that. Tune in to a channel later. But when we put him first, there are benefits and blessings when that happens. I digress. Go ahead.
Because due to time management, we're going to take those story about the woman of Zarephath and is it Ananias and Sapphira and the rich man with the barn next week when we bring it over. Are you available, Chief? Are you available next week as well?
Yes, I'll
okay.
Yes.
Here it is.
We'll have to discuss. Yeah, that's good.
Is that all right?
Are we good?
Okay,
is that okay, Dan? Is that okay?
Dan, you need a moment? Here it is. Briefly give, if you can, your personal testimony about tithing. I'm going to ask the three of you all to go ahead and the chief not to. He can do it in his final thought. Stash, Dan.
Quickly, I feel like I've already shared mine.
Okay,
so
you've already shared yours? All right. Dan, do you have a personal tithing story?
My personal tithing story, just one comment on the gross and the net.
Okay.
Just pay. I'm just happy for my people to pay. You know, if you're at a point where you can make that decision between gross and net, that means God is blessing you. Just pay it. Whatever you do, God just return.
And then on that, if you're able to discern or have challenge about paying on the gross and net, at least you have a job. Sean?
Exactly. If you're able to. So my blessing, personal, it's like when I've been committed, I see an increase. When I slack or when I've slacked, it's like the blessings and financial stuff, it decreases. So it's like there's a direct correlation in math. The more you give, the more it's given back.
Mercy.
So just do your part. And personally, I've seen that.
Yes, I'm striving to have the faith like the rest of you. Because remember the stat I gave earlier,
25%.
25%, right? So we got one of these individuals online that's doing it great. Stacey's already told her testimony, right? And now you guys are debating net or gross, net blessings and gross blessings. Listen, I got the faith the size of a mustard seed, right? So I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna start with the net.
We love you, Sean.
We keep it real on the Quad Squad.
I'm trying just to stay out of the category of the 75%.
Right. And Sean, let me tell you, the interesting thing about is young people or those who are considering marriage,
tell us
those are the things that you all need to consider and talk about with your suitable mate.
Tell it.
Because that can be a source of great friction and consternation in your marriage or courtship. Shout out to Madge. It is. As it turns out, you want to make certain if you're looking at your bills, look at your bills, but understand that there's no debate when it comes to tithe. As for me and our house, we'll serve the Lord. We will turn tithe, whether we write a check, whether we put money in the envelope, whether we do it online, and that we do that. We believe in paying a faithful tithe, returning a faithful tithe on all increases. And let me just say this, last but not least. If you give too much, Joydell, if you turn too much into God and the church, it won't return to you void.
Right.
God will bless you immeasurably. Can you ever give God's work too much money?
Mm-mm.
Let me tell you, every time I write on online giving my 10%, and then I take a matching 10% to go to something else, the devil's always like, woo, you giving all that money again on another line? And I don't make nearly the money that Stacy and Counselor Sean and the CFO, COO Dan and the CFO Chief Patterson make. But guess what? My two little mites rubbing together with Sister Austin's, I am glad.
Order in the
It's
course.
when
You know you balling. You
hold
know
up.
you balling.
Wait, here it is. When little becomes much, when you put it in the master's hand. Chief, give us a final thought, and then Stacy, pray us out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Once again, I thank you for the opportunity. This is one of my probably favorite topics and discussions on this. I can truly say I've been on both sides of the coin at a point in my life when church folk
Come on.
did me in. I decided
Come on.
years ago, this was years ago, away from here, that I wasn't gonna I'm not gonna participate in that anymore. They not getting none of my money. And guess who it hurt?
Well,
Moi. So from that point on, I realized that my giving is not to them, but my giving is to God. And when I do what He says do, it will be a blessing. So as I grew in my relationship with Christ, I shared that with my son when he was in 8th grade. He got his first job, and I shared with him the principles of tithing
at a young age. That's right.
10.
That's right.
His obedience and his love matched. And as he started doing that, he came to me one time. He said, "Dad," because every time he gave, he got something back. He was like, "Dad, I just keep getting. And it's not about getting money per se, but it's about the blessing of God in your life. That when if you have a need, that widow at Zarephath, she gave him the cake, and for the whole famine, they ate because she put God first. And I use that Old Testament story in my life in 2023. When I put God first, I don't worry about Duke turning me off. Because it's God's problem now, because I have done what He told me to do. And even when the gas light in my car
flickers,
and it starts, and it almost burns out because I'm between here and payday. I trust God.
I'm about to take the altar call.
I'm a living testimony that God provides when you put Him first. So if I can encourage anybody, if you haven't been doing, if you're part of the 75 that Sean talked about, go ahead and trust Him. Don't worry about what an organization is doing per se. And here's, I know you got to go.
Go ahead.
Oh, you the one got to go.
No. Here's what I would say to that person who is organizationally disgruntled or challenged about what the organization does. Get involved in that organization, so that you can make a change.
Come on,
get on your church board. Be involved in your conference constituency meeting.
Yes.
Get on the nominating committee. Get on the organizing committee. Get on your executive committee. Then you will be able to see and have a voice. A lot of us in the local church don't realize the power and the voice that we have to make change happen. Yes, I'm giving insider information.
Yes,
you can make a change. But what I've discovered, Brad, and I'll let you go, is that many people who have a problem with how the money works are not necessarily the ones that are investing in the organization. Or they're hit and miss. They pay tithe and not return it. So may God bless us this day as we return the tithe to Him and watch Him do what He says that He will do. I am grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll have you back next week to summarize what you said. Don't just talk about it. Be about it. Don't just talk about it. In other words, people with hope, vote. Get involved. That's it. And just think, It says something, Stash and Counselor and Motown Dan, for a former assistant chief financial officer and chief financial officer, treasurer of conferences to talk about how he lost faith and was going to decide he wasn't going to do it. I'm taking all my stuff and I'm going home. And realizing that he was only hurting himself. Come on, Rob. Come on, Chief. That's what it's about. Again, once again, a plug to Rob, who will be preaching today. Service started 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time at Mount Olive, Seventh-day Adventist Church in Apopka, under the direction of the great Bishop, Pastor Carl Ware, Sr., and Rob is an elder there. Let me also say, I'm glad to have you elders around me. I feel like the thief on the cross surrounded by 4 almost Jesuses or Jesuses. Here it is. Here it is. I want you to know it is important that you all study for yourselves.
Yes.
Not just what we said. Study with all fear and trembling, whether it's the gross or the net, whether you thought it was Old Testament or non-existent in the New Testament. Study for yourself. Wasn't this a great Bible study this morning?
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Next week, let me tell you, next week, we're going to have part 2 of this tithing thing called Offerings for Jesus, or how we look at that liberal giving, things like that, with Rob Patterson and maybe one other guest may be a part. We'll see. To catch up on previous episodes of the Quad Squad, please check out us out on our YouTube channel under the Quad Squad Sabbath School, because that's where you'll see our cartoon image. So, on behalf of the Quad Squad, the Smith brothers, Daniel and Sean Smith,
Closing prayer.
Stacy Grant Bury, my co-BFF, and our returning guest, the Chief, Robert J. Patterson Jr., who will be preaching today. My name is Ivan Alston. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, be blessed today and always. Shout out Rodney Cooper in Detroit, Michigan. I see you, Rob.
And so let us, thank you, let us pray. Jehovah Jireh, the cattle upon 1,000 hills are thine. Lord, if we have any need, all we have to do is come to you and you provide it. Father, as far as the management or mismanagement of your funds, we leave that in your hand for your time. But help us, Lord, to learn and to test the faith in giving. Many of us have done it, and we are seeing the benefits.
Yes.
And so we leave it all in your hands. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Have a great one.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh.